In this chapter or in our report, you will tackle or describe about the differences of political economy influence the level of economic development of a nation and also the attractiveness as a place for doing business. Additionally, we will also tackle about how political economy is changing around the world and what is the implication of these are for the future rate of economic development of a nation and our regions.
The level objectives of our report is number 1, to explain what determines the level of economic development of a nation. Number 2, identify the macro-political and economic changes occurring worldwide. Number 3, it describes how transition economies are moving toward market-based systems. And lastly, it explains the implications for management practice of national difference in political economy. Differences in economic development. Countries around the world have very different levels of wealth. One to measure countries' wealth is by looking at how much money each person makes in a year. So this is what we call GNI or gross domestic income. Countries like Japan, United States, and Switzerland have high GNI per person, or countries like China and India much lower amounts. However, just because one country has higher GNI per person doesn't mean people there are living better lives. The cost of living is different in different places. For example, things cost a lot more in Switzerland than in the United States. So, even though Swiss people make more money, they might not be able to buy much stuff. To make a fair comparison, we adjust the GNI numbers to account for the cost of living. So this is called PPP or Purchasing Power Parity. When we look at the PPP numbers, we see that there are huge differences in how people live in country. People in India, for example, can afford to buy a small fraction of what people in the United States can buy. This might make it seem like India isn't a good place for businesses to sell their products. But this isn't entirely true. India has a growing middle class with a lot of spending power. Another thing that makes it hard to compare countries is that countries have a large black economy. So this means that people are doing business and making money without government knowing about it. So this makes the official numbers look smaller than they really are. While some countries are very rich, others are getting richer quickly. China and India are two examples of countries that have grown their economies very fast. So this means that they are becoming bigger markets for businesses around the world. Broader Conceptions of Development by Amartya Sen. So far, we've talked about how much money countries have, but there's more to a country's success than just money. People also need to be healthy, educated, and have freedom to make their own choices. A famous economist named Amartya Sen says that countries' development should be measured by how well its people are doing, not just how much money has. To measure this, we use the HDI. So the HDI looks at things like how long people live, how much schooling they get, and how much money they have to live comfortably. A high HDI means people in country are generally healthier, smarter, and have a better quality of life. So in conclusion, the differences in economic development between countries is complex. We need to look how much money countries have and how well their people are doing.
We all know and we can't deny the fact that innovation and entrepreneurship are one of our instruments to make our economic grow and develop, right? Innovation is defined not only new products but also new processes, organizations, management practices, and strategies. We couldn't deny the fact that innovation is a driving force for economic growth, competitiveness, and societal progress. It fosters efficiency, creates new opportunities, and improves our living standards. Meanwhile, entrepreneurship is seen as a driving force behind innovation. Entrepreneurship often commercializes new products and processes, providing dynamism to the economy. Basically, entrepreneurs and innovation are both can create or establish new businesses or new markets, which often leads to generating jobs and employment opportunities. Furthermore, entrepreneurship are the forefront of innovation because it develops new technologies, processes, and business ideas that can drive or help to make our economy develop. Also, innovation can help entrepreneurs to create new and unique products and services, which can help to offer a superior quality to the customer, leading to a higher customer satisfaction and demand. In conclusion, a country's economy needs a business environment that is conducive to innovation and entrepreneurship in order to achieve a sustained long-run growth.
Innovation and entrepreneurship require a market economy. The economic freedom in market economies fosters greater innovation and entrepreneurship than in planned or mixed economies. In market economies, individuals can freely pursue business ideas and innovate, while in planned economies, state ownership limits incentives for personal innovation, leading to economic stagnation. This lack of freedom and incentive contributed to the collapse of many communist states in the late 1980s. A study of 102 countries over 20 years showed a strong link between economic freedom and economic growth, with more freedom leading to greater prosperity. The required political system. In the West, democracy is often linked with market economies, strong property rights, and economic progress, leading to the belief that democracy is good for growth. However, some totalitarian regimes have also achieved rapid economic growth by fostering market economies and protecting property rights. Notably, several of the fastest growing economies over the past 30 years started with undemocratic governments, while some stable democracies saw slow growth. Despite this, democratic regimes are generally better for long-term growth because they provide more secure property rights and support human development, which totalitarian states tend to suppress.
So it is. Some argue that democracy is a necessary precondition for economic growth. Subsequent economic progress often leads to the establishment of a democratic regime. In many cases, it appears that economic progress can be a catalyst for the adoption of democratic regimes, rather than the other way around. Democracy is often associated with concepts such as freedom, equality, and justice. However, it is important to note that democratic regimes can vary widely in terms of their effectiveness and quality. Some democracies may face challenges such as corruption, inequality, and lack of participation.
Geography, education, and economic development. While a country's political and economic systems are key drivers of economic development, other factors such as geography also play a crucial role. Economist Jeffrey Sachs argues that favorable geography, like access to coastlines, makes societies more likely to engage in trade and adopt market-based economies, leading to faster economic growth. Conversely, adverse geographical conditions like high disease rates and poor soils in tropical regions can hinder development, regardless of political or economic systems. His research shows that landlocked and tropical countries typically experience slower growth compared to coastal and temperate ones. Education is another significant factor in economic development. Countries that invest more in education tend to have higher growth rates because a more educated population is generally more productive. Studies support this, showing that investment in education positively impacts economic growth. This also helps explain why some Southeast Asian countries have been able to overcome the challenges of their tropical geography and achieve rapid growth, unlike many tropical nations in Africa and Latin America. The spread of market-based systems. Since the 1980s, many countries have shifted from centrally planned and mixed economies to market-based systems, influenced by the success of market economies. This global trend includes former Soviet states, Eastern Europe, and countries in Asia and Africa. The Heritage Foundation is a politically conservative U.S. research foundation, and it gives some idea of the degree to which the world has shifted towards market-based economic systems. So the Heritage Foundation's index ranks economies based on economic freedom, but it also highlights that economic freedom doesn't always align with political freedom as seen in places like Hong Kong and Singapore. This is because Hong Kong was reabsorbed into Communist China in 1997, and the first thing Beijing did was shut down Hong Kong's freely elected legislature.
For the next part is the spread of democracy. Three main reasons for spreading of democracy. First is many totalitarian regimes have failed to provide economic progress for most of their population. When people experience poor economic condition and lack of basic needs, they often seek political change, which can lead to spread of democratic ideas. Second is advancement in communication technologies. So, new communication technologies like satellite, TV, fax machine, desktop publishing, and the internet have made it harder for states to control and censor information. These technologies allow to people access uncensored news and democratic ideas from free societies, promoting the democratic values. Third is rising middle and working classes. In many countries, economic growth over the past 25 years has created a more prosperous middle and working class. As this group become wealthier, they often demand more political freedom and democratic reforms, driving the spread of democracy.
The second state in transition is the New World Order and global terrorism. So in this topic is all about the New World Order and its impact on global geopolitics. It explores contrasting perspective on the future shape of global civilization, with Francis Fukuyama arguing for the dominance of Western liberal democracy and Samuel Huntington predicting a world divided into clashing civilizations. Fukuyama believes that the end of the Cold War marks the end of history, with Western liberal democracy as the final form of human government. He sees a future characterized by harmony and cooperation among nations. According naman kay Samuel Huntington, he challenged Fukuyama's vision, arguing that there is no universal civilization based on Western ideals. Instead, he predicts a world divided into distinct civilizations, each with its own values and ideology. Huntington foresees potential conflicts between these civilizations, particularly along their fault lines.
For the next part is the nature of economic transformation. First one is deregulation. governance controls everything, including prices and production. Private businesses and foreign investment were limited. The regulation changed this by removing these controls, allowing supply and demand to set prices, and lifting restriction on businesses. For the second one is privatization. So it means involves selling government-owned businesses to private individuals. This can boost the economy because private owners aims to make more money by improving operation. Privatization began in Britain in 1980s, which companies like British Telecom being sold. It has spread globally, especially in Eastern Europe and the former Soviet Union. However, for privatization to be successful, government must remove restrictions and allow competition. In Brazil, for example, the government divided its own company into smaller parts and welcomed foreign investment. Additionally, countries need to ensure that companies earn money fairly. So for the last one is the legal system. A strong market economy requires laws to protect private property and enforce contracts. Without these laws, businesses might not feel secure because their profits could be at risk. After communism, many countries lack these legal protections. For instance, in Eastern Europe, property records were often incomplete, making ownership unclear. Although laws have improved, weak courts and poor contract dispute system still pose challenges. China has made progress by amending its constitution in 2004 and passing new laws in 2007 to protect private property similarly to state property.
Next is the implications of changing political economy. It is a shift from a bipolar world dominated by collectivism and individualism to more multipolar world with a growing emphasis on free markets and democracy. While this shift presents significant opportunities for businesses, it also carries risks such as economic instability and geopolitical tensions. The potential of merging markets, particularly in China, India, and Latin America, but warns that these markets may still face challenges in terms of development and political stability. Understanding the risks associated with investing in these regions, including the potential for financial crisis and geopolitical conflicts. The long-term monetary benefits of doing business in a country depend on market size, consumer wealth, and future prospects. International businesses should recognize potential economic stars and invest early to build brand loyalty and gain experience, while late entrants may face disadvantages. For the first mover, the advantages are the early entrance into a growing market can gain significant advantages such as brand loyalty and experience. For a late mover, the disadvantage or the handicaps that late entrants might suffer. The three types of risks for considering doing business in a foreign country and taking steps to mitigate them. Political risk refers to the likelihood that political forces will cause changes in a country's business environment that negatively affect a company's profits. This can include factors like social unrest, political instability, and changes in government policies. The second type of risk is economic risk. It is the possibility that economic mismanagement will lead to changes that harm a business goal. Examples of economic risk includes high inflations, excessive debt, and financial crisis. And lastly, legal risk. It refers to the risk that country's legal system will not provide adequate safeguards for contracts or property rights. This can make it difficult for businesses to enforce contracts or protect their intellectual property. The costs of doing business in a country are determined by political, economic, and legal factors. Political factors involve paying bribes to powerful entities, while economic factors include the sophistication of country's economy. Legal factors include strict local laws, high liability, insurance rates, and lack of well-established laws for business practice. These factors can lead to increased costs, increased risk, and potential theft of intellectual property. For the overall attractiveness of a country for international business depends on balancing benefits, costs, and risks. Lower costs and risks are economically advanced, politically stable countries, while long-term benefits depend on economic growth rates and political stability.